Are the Browns better than people realize?
No, they're worse than people think.
You have to remember
No bias.
Deshaun Watson last year, I think it had been around 700 days or so.
He's done.
Since he had played in an NFL game.
He's not liked anymore. People don't like him.
No, he's not liked at all. But he only played 6 weeks last year after not playing for about two full years. He's a 27-year-old. 27 still. There's still so much time in his career. And when you look around the Browns, a lot of people are giving them great grades for this offseason. Short up some defensive line problems. Zadarius Smith just comes in.
I'm getting deja vu.
They get Elijah Moore. The Browns are talking like they're going to win the AFC North right now.
It's deja vu.
And you think they're full of crap?
I think it's total deja vu.
But what's the biggest reason?
We've heard this a couple of years ago. Oh, here comes Odell, and they have Chubb, and build up the defense with Ward, and this team's going to win the AFC North. They're going to be good. Oh, 7-10. It's the Browns. It's a crappy organization that's full of bad luck. There's a black cloud over them, and they're terrible. They're not going to be good. I'm not a believer. I think Watson, he's going to stink. Mm-hmm. I'm not a believer at all. I think they're the worst team in the division.
Ziggy, would you echo that word for word?
I would say maybe the opposite. Look, I got a lot of problems with Deshaun Watson. We don't have to get into that. But the fact is, you're talking about a player who, there's a reason teams are lining up the door when he wanted out of Houston to trade a bunch of first-round picks for him. He's shown that he can be a top 5 quarterback in the NFL. Look, he was bad last year, but it's easy to understand why. He couldn't practice with the team. He hadn't played in years. You're talking about a defense that was so putrid last year. You have to believe they're going to regress to the mean. They've got competent receivers. I can see this team having a top 10 offense and an average defense, and that is a winning formula.
This could be a top 10
Watson's
defense.
no better than Baker Mayfield.
That's ridiculous. Baker Mayfield never put together a top 5 season. Deshaun Watson did.
It's over him. He's done. He's done.
When I look at the Browns right now, first I want to touch on the defense, like you said, Ziggy. They kind of revamped their safety position. They still have Grant Delpit, but they bring in Juan Thornhill, who will start, and they also have Rodney McLeod now. I believe Rodney McLeod came in. So they addressed the back end of the secondary. On the corners, you currently have Denzel Ward and you have Greg Newsome, 2 guys who, if they live up to their talent, pretty solid cornerback duo. And then on the D-line, they actually plucked some people from the Vikings. They have Zadarius Smith now and Dalvin Tomlinson. The one cautionary note that I'd have on Zadarius Smith is he started last year, and you've seen this, Ziggy. He started last year with his hair on fire. Off the charts good. Just dominating games, completely changing them from start to finish. But towards the end of the year, remember, he's an older guy now. And you started to see him kind of wane off a bit. And really, by the end of the year, there weren't many impact plays coming from Zadarius. So that signing, while it looks really good on paper at the moment, I'm not too sure that by the season's end, Smith will have a lot left in the tank. I'm just a little cautious on that. Do you disagree with that?
But just do you think about what the Browns need? I agree that he's not going to be a star, but they've got a guy who's a top 3 defensive player of the year candidate on one side of Myles Garrett. All you need is somebody who has a chance to win one-on-one. And Zadarius Smith is at least that.
Yes. And that's one thing for Browns fans who are currently typing out right now. Like, this idiot, he doesn't know how good our D-line is. They have a lot of good players on the D-line. So if Smith can come in and be a rotational player, yeah, you could be looking at a really ferocious unit.
Let me just say one thing. Any positive Browns talk,
just watch it.
I'm throwing it out the window completely because it's deja vu. It's like I'm reliving this whole thing again.
Well, I mean, you're kind of right.
We're going to beat them twice like we do every, 30-2 against the Browns, the last 32 games, something ridiculous like that. Mm-hmm. They're not good. It's a crappy franchise. They're not good. They're never going to be good. They stink. I mean, what did they go? They went 10-7, beat the Steelers in front of an empty stadium by a couple scores and threw a ticker tape parade. And they're pathetic.
So do you think there's no chance Deshaun Watson comes back?
No, I think
he can get himself back to a top 10 quarterback in the league?
I think he's done. I think he stinks.
Just too.
I think
I think he's unliked, and I think he's done.
I think what everyone can agree upon is, yeah.
I think they'll be
like what. Yeah, what matters is Deshaun Watson's play because the Browns have a top 3 offensive line. They've got an elite running back. You know, Elijah Moore, Amari Cooper, and David Njoku. That's not the best core you've ever heard, but it's hardly the worst. It all depends on Deshaun Watson. If he can, Jack, can you at least say this? If he somehow, maybe magically, becomes a top 10 quarterback, this is a playoff team with a chance to make a run.
Not in the AFC. It's too good.
Really? See, I disagree with that. If Deshaun's a top 10 quarterback, this is a very dangerous team.
No, they'll be 8-8. Like
I think the rest of the roster is really good.
It was a couple years back when they had Odell and Chubb and a good defense and a good line.
And who at quarterback?
I don't see Watson being any better than Baker.
If you put a top 10 quarterback on this Cleveland Browns team, they're better than the Dolphins. Sorry, Zach. Well, the Dolphins are really good, but they're
for me, it's hypothetical. I don't see him being top 10 at all.
I know. That's true. But they could.
I can't even envision that. But okay, fine.
Better than the Broncos.
If he is, I guess I have to say, yeah.
I just want to say, in his last career season, right? Like in his last full season, where he actually got to do an off season and play in all the games, you say he wasn't better than Baker Mayfield. He put up 4,800 yards, 33 touchdowns, and 7 interceptions. If he does that with the Browns this year, they're lighting the league on fire.
That was before his incident, before his injury. I don't trust him. I just think he's done. I mean, he can prove me wrong, and I'll eat my words, but we'll see. Until he does.
All I'm saying is, if you're telling, like the Browns right now have 25-1 Super Bowl odds. I think that's too low for a team with a quarterback with this kind of potential. Like you know what? Or you talk about MVP again, like he can't win MVP, but his odds are the same as Trey Lance. Who's the better player?
Okay, I agree, but I guess to answer your question, yeah, if Deshaun Watson is a top 10 quarterback in the NFL this year and plays like he even remotely close to how he's played in the past, I can't say no to the Browns being a playoff team. I'd have to say yes. I just don't see it happening.
And the other thing, too, to keep in mind with the Browns this season is last year, so many eyes were on them and on Deshaun Watson's return as that grew closer and closer. And a lot of scrutiny. Every single week it was I think that's going to regress a little bit this season now. It'll people still dislike him. Most fans will not be fans of Deshaun Watson at all. I know a lot of Browns fans who actually have left the team. They don't want to be fans at all. But from a media perspective, I don't think that the massage storyline will be as big and loom over the franchise the same way. I'm just not expecting that. So some of the pressure in that regard will come off. I see most of the pressure being on Kevin Stefanski, the head coach there in Cleveland, who I just never was that impressed by. He came from Minnesota, and his whole time there, I thought our offense was really not very good with him in control. So I have some coaching concerns with Cleveland, and I'm not sure that they're going to live up to the challenge. But from a talent standpoint, this team is really impressive, and I expect them to make a run at the playoffs.
I just think it's a black cloud organization.
It's fair. No, that's fair. There are teams like the Lions and the Browns and the Texans of late.
I think it's a black. The Browns more so than the Texans historically.
Oh, much more than Texans historically.
I think it's a black cloud.
It's really like the Lions. Trying to think what other teams just have that black cloud hanging over.
No, when you're talking about teams that have been in the league for a while, it's just the Browns and the Lions. They're in a tier of their own. Everyone else at some point has been good. But the Jets at least have us. They had some good years, right? They even had those AFC championship runs back to back. That was something. Yeah. The Lions and the Browns have never had anything like that.
Mm-hmm. So to put a bow on the Browns discussion here, when you look at them this season, floor ceiling, Jack, what do you say? The floor is.
I'm gonna say the floor is low. I think the floor is 5-12. I think the ceiling is 8-9.
Wow. Okay.
So I think they'll go maybe 7-10.
Spoken like a true Steelers fan. I respect that.
And most Steelers fans would agree.
I respect that. Ziggy, how about you? Floor ceiling for Cleveland.
The floor, honestly, what was Deshaun Watson's record of the Browns last year? Because they got a lot of wins with Jacoby. Was it
he was bad.
2-5?
It was not good. I think he played.
I think the floor for them is actually 4 or 5 wins. Yeah. I think that things could fall off the rails quickly because look, if they don't start good, Stefanski's getting fired, right? And then things really spiral. I think their ceiling's 11 or 12 wins in a Super Bowl run. I really think this is one of the highest variance teams in the NFL this year. And I wouldn't be stunned to see either of those outcomes. And it all depends on one guy.
Yeah, crazy. I have it 6 wins is the floor. I'm a little more optimistic about them than you are, Jack, and the floor as well for you, Ziggy. Just there's too much talent. So I like 6 wins as the floor. And then I agree with you. I think that ceiling rises up to 11, 12 wins because
12 wins is a lot.
Oh, it's a lot of wins, but you have to remember
to be 12-5, you got to be unbelievable.
You got to be really good. And I think this team, if Deshaun Watson plays to the level he was once capable of, I see no reason why they can't be one of the better teams one of the better teams in the league. And 2, when you look at their schedule, they have the AFC South and NFC West this year. Same schedule as you guys. It's
a cream puff.
It's a light schedule.
And they've got an even easier schedule because they finished last in the division last year.
Yeah, so they're gonna have a pretty light schedule.
If Watson, go and prove me wrong, and I'll leave my words.
The thing is that we have to keep in mind too. It's the AFC North. Yes, their schedule's light, but we're not going to see, in all likelihood, we're not going to see 4 teams from that division go to the playoffs for sure. So somewhere in there will be a letdown. One or two of these teams will be a little disappointing. I'm expecting.
I think it'll be Baltimore.
You think Baltimore?
Could be. Low key.
I think that's a discussion next week.
Low key could be.
I think next week that could be the discussion. So there you go on the Browns. We think they could be really good. Jack thinks they suck.
I also believe black and gold. I mean, every Steelers fan in the world say the same thing.
All right.
Maybe a little biased.